Let's get you some 2-star pitchers and Week 4 sleepers next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Friday, April 22nd. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Scott White. And let's start you off with the schedule for next week. 12 teams have 7 games. 17 teams have 6 games. And one lonely team has 5 games. That is the Oakland A's. Scotty, who are some 2-star pitchers you like for Week 4?
Well, let's talk about some that you may be on the fence about. They're not necessarily available. We'll start with Luis Severino. It's been kind of hit or miss in the early going. Some weird things going on with his pitch selection, but he gets the Orioles and the Royals this week, so I think that makes him almost an automatic yes. Nathan Eovaldi, his matchups are more split at Toronto, at Baltimore. Still, I think you go yes with him. He's good enough that you don't worry so much about that Blue Jays matchup. Framber Valdez, the control's been pretty shaky lately, and he goes through stretches like that. At Texas, at Toronto, I still think I lean yes. It's invested too much in him to sit him in a 2-start week. I feel like another one, Tristan McKenzie, hit or miss. A lot of upside, though, at the Angels, at the A's. I'm going to say yes to him, too. I will, however, hesitate on Marcus Stroman and Eduardo Rodriguez. In points leagues, okay, there's a lower threshold to meet there for a 2-start pitcher. But Stroman and Rodriguez, I don't think either's had a good start yet, and their matchups are kind of shaky. So protect those ratios in Roto and maybe skip them for the 2-start week. Some pitchers, 2-start pitchers who may actually be available to pick up in your league. Merrill Kelly has been great so far. He's got an ERA around 0.50 and really worked to improve his changeup this offseason, getting a lot more whiffs with it. The matchups against the Dodgers and Cardinals, pretty tough, but we've already seen him thrive against the Astros this year. So I'd be willing to use Merrill Kelly. Mitch Keller, much more available, about 71% of CBS leagues, you can pick him up. And he looked like he may have figured out how to get the most out of that improved fastball this year. Just throw it a ton, basically, in his last start. We saw the whiff rate go up, the strike rate go up. Gets the Brewers and the Padres this week. I like Mitch Keller. German Marquez, very hit or miss, very difficult to predict from start to start, but at least he has 2 this week at Philadelphia versus Cincinnati to hopefully give you 1 good start at least. If you're thinking points league specifically, I like Miles Michaelis. He's off to a good start and he gets 2 starts this week. Jordan Hicks just made his debut as a starter on Thursday, and though it was short, he looked pretty good, so hopefully he'll be stretched out more for his matchups this week against the Mets and the Diamondbacks. And we'll just leave it at that.
All right, let's move over to the single start streamers. Who are some names you like for Week 4?
So now that the Dodgers are going to use Tony Gonsolin like a conventional starter, which seems to be the case with Andrew Heaney on the IL. Right after that was announced, Gonsolin went out and went 6 innings strong. And I think he'll be able to do that again against the Diamondbacks this week. I also like Bailey Ober against the Tigers. He's available in more than half of CBS sports leagues. And then the Yankees duo of Jordan Montgomery and Jameson Taillon. They get the Orioles, who've been far and away the worst offense in baseball, lowest scoring team. And if you need to go a little deeper, Eliezer Hernandez is interesting. When he's healthy, he's usually a pretty good source of strikeouts, and he's facing a Mariners team that's been striking out a lot this year.
All right, let's move over to the hitter side of things. The best hitter matchups for next week: the Yankees, the Padres, the Astros, the Braves, and the Brewers. The worst hitter matchups: the Oakland A's, the Nationals, the Pirates, the Cubs, and the Royals. With that being said, Scotty, who are the sleeper hitters for next week?
Well, you mentioned the Padres have the second best matchups at Cincinnati for 3, at Pittsburgh for 3. And they have a lot of hitters right in that range where I can recommend them as sleepers. So Jurickson Profar, off to a great start this year. Can recommend him for this week. Luke Voight, he's been dropped in so many leagues that he now qualifies for this list. And I know he's been out of the lineup some lately because he's off to a slow start. But with those matchups, I still trust in the player, and I think this is the week he comes roaring back. And maybe even C.J. Abrams if he needs steals. But the rookie off to a terrible start, been sitting against lefties, but only one lefty on the schedule for this week. I also like, you mentioned the Brewers among the best matchups. I like Hunter Renfroe and Andrew McCutchen, who were especially good against lefties last year, and there are 3 lefties among the 7 matchups for the Brewers this week. A couple guys who are a little more available. Alec Baume, who appears to be back to being the Phillies' regular third baseman, and he's been crushing the ball and the strikeout rate. He's hardly struck out at all this year, and that was a big thing that held him back last year. So that's more in line with what we expected from Baume all along. And then Aaron Hicks, back to being the Yankees' everyday center fielder, leading off lately, and he's been doing a good job of getting on base, which has historically been true for him. Hopefully provide a little power, a little speed in a week where the Yankees have the best matchups.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.